From the Global Performance Audit Unit, this is Leading Voices. Real conversations on performance excellence, strategy, measurement, improvement, employee performance, and culture.
Hello everyone and good day. Welcome to today's episode of Leading Voices, where we explore strategies, systems, and leadership practices that drive organizational excellence. My name is 𝐀𝐥-𝐑𝐚𝐬. I'm the Strategy and Performance Cluster Director at the 𝐀𝐥 Institute, and I will be your facilitator for today's episode. For the past decade, my work has focused on helping organizations design performance management systems to measure what matters and to translate that into actionable insights. In this episode, we're taking you inside 𝐻𝐶 Global, which is one of the world's most ambitious regenerative tourism developments. And what we're going to try to do today is understand how they have been able to build a performance culture that truly connects strategy to everyday execution. Joining me are two leaders at the forefront of this journey. We have with us Łukasz Kulaga, Director of Corporate Planning at 𝐻𝐶 Global. He guides enterprise strategy and the organization's long-term strategic goals. Together with him is Majed Al-Rashid, Corporate Performance Lead, who oversees KPI frameworks, performance monitoring, and enterprise reporting across the entire group. Today's conversation will center around a powerful idea. How does performance link to people, culture, leadership, and how all of that comes together into creating a unique, authentic culture within an organization? We'll try to explore how 𝐻𝐶 Global has been able to institutionalize a clear alignment between strategy and culture, how employee performance management is linked to that overall performance culture, and how that culture is developed and nurtured through systems, through digital platforms, and how it connects to recognition, purpose, and accountability. So let's dive right in. Now, we're going to start things off with the foundational elements. And before we talk about culture and systems, I'd like to welcome our guests today in expanding a bit on what their role is when it comes to RSG. So we'll start off with Łukasz. Łukasz, what is your role in RSG, and how does that link into performance management, strategy, and performance culture?
Thank you for the intro, Mihai. I'm the Director of Corporate Planning at RSG. So what it entails is that me and my team, we create clarity and alignment across the organization, across the levels. As 𝐻𝐶 Global is a vertically integrated company, as you can imagine, it includes multiple different businesses from different industries and different sectors. Therefore, the job is pretty diverse. It requires us to decipher what is the critical priority for a different business, and accordingly help them to articulate priorities, measures, and also make sure that these are cascadable to every level across their respective structure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Łukasz. Let's now turn to Majed. Majed, what about you? What's your role, and how does that feed into strategy management and the performance culture aspect?
Thank you so much for the intro, Mihai. Performance stream works and synergize really well with the planning team. We ensure and make sure in a quarterly manner everything is on the right track with the businesses. Our main role is to create a performance culture, corporate performance culture across the businesses, subsidiaries, different industry within our conglomerate 𝐻𝐶 Global. So that summarizes our role.
Great. Thank you both for that. And I think what we can all highlight, based on an introduction by our two colleagues, is the fact that the role that they play are very much interconnected, which goes hand in hand with what we've been able to identify as one of the strengths when it comes to 𝐻𝐶 Global practice, and the fact that strategy and performance aren't separate, right? They're both integrated and they closely work together. And that, of course, pushes the conversation forward, right? So let's try to see, how does performance culture matter in the first place, and what does it matter maybe more specifically in the context of 𝐻𝐶 Global. So performance culture and performance management are very much interconnected, right? Especially in the context in which we want this to become reality and we want this to be transparent for the entire organization. So why do you consider that these two areas are so central to RSG's long-term success, as well as the integrity of the system altogether?
Performance culture is essential to ensure that strategy is not a static document. It's a shared mindset across the organization. So as you can imagine, we have a diverse set of stakeholders, and we need to ensure that all of them understand how they fit the bigger picture. With performance management, we have institutionalized a set of systems and tools that enable them to deliver on the promise, deliver on the mandate, and also drive transparency around their results.
And topping the transparency Lucas mentioned, having a unified North Star as a vision and goals will drive this performance culture to collectively, as people, to drive the corporate performance better, the group's performance better.
Mm-hmm.
That's what creates a cohesive culture together.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. So I think based on this, we have at least a starting point for the conversation, and we understand where or how Red Global got to where it is today. Now, in order to maybe expand on that and understand their journey in a bit more details, let's talk a bit about a journey that we actually went through together a bit over a year ago, where we carried the GPA unit's performance strategy and performance maturity assessment for Red Global. Right? And as part of that overall assessment, we were able to highlight some real evidence that shows us how different systems, as well as people, leaders, and processes, how all of them, let's say, come together when it comes to Red Global. So what I would like to ask both of you is, how would you describe your experience with the assessment, both when it comes to the rigor of the assessment itself, as well as when it comes to the level of engagement during this entire process?
I gotta say that it was a pretty rigorous exercise. It wasn't just a checklist. We had to engage multiple stakeholders within the organization to make sure that we provide an accurate picture of how we manage, how we plan, and how we deliver. This exercise was an ability for us to look in the mirror, and even though we are privileged to obtain the highest rating, which is 5 out of 5, it gave us a lot of food for thought, because it was a moment of reflection. It was a moment when we could pause and look at where we at versus what we could do more, what we could do better, where we could refine. So definitely it was an inspiring moment, something that we took into consideration when we planned for the subsequent years, when we defined our priorities and how we embedded continuous improvement into our system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Audit.
Yeah, indeed, it wasn't just a checklist, for sure. And it was very inspiring for us to build upon that. Although, as Lucas mentioned, we've been recognized as optimized 5 out of 5, but we're going to take this opportunity forward and move into 6 out of 5, the limitless, if you can say. So, as a room of improvement. In terms of level of engagement, actually it wasn't challenging. It came from a very reputable place, GPA unit, and all the businesses supported us and created a huge spark within the organization. So in that regard, it wasn't challenging, and it was really smooth.
Okay, thank you guys. So what we can maybe highlight from this exercise, right, and to link it with the cornerstone of our conversation, is the fact that the systems and the frameworks, the one that we, let's say, primarily focus on when we assess, they're just the foundation of the overall system, right, that we look at. But culture, right, performance culture more specifically, is built in everyday moments, and primarily, right, is developed when leaders and their teams are able to collaborate together. And in your situation, right, as a result of the assessment that we conducted, we've identified one of the core strengths within Red Global is the fact that there's clarity when it comes to the governance aspect, as well as when it comes to strategic alignment. So this is something that is incredibly difficult to achieve, right, especially in a large-scale organization such as Red Global. So what we'd like to hear from you is, how did you actually make this happen, right? So how have you ensured that there's a clear alignment between the culture within the organization, as well as, of course, the strategy side of things, right? And how is this then, let's say, institutionalized across the different levels of the organization?
I think to a large extent, we moved away from like strictly formal systems into making sure that performance is recognized when it happens. So people get the credit in real time rather than waiting for formal check-in meetings.
Sure.
And also their successes are shared within the wider organization. The other initiative is that we embraced strongly the learning organization concept. We have a library of lessons learned. We know how certain challenges were tackled, whether it's related to construction, whether it's related to operations, or a corporate side of things. And everyone could participate in those sessions when these challenges and the solutions are brainstormed and get lessons learned and be inspired how to tackle them in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Łukasz. Majid.
In addition to that, I think part of the processes that we take huge pride in is, Red Sea has become a conglomerate. There are certain subsidiaries with different operations, and Red Sea has become not just a developer, also an operator. So this has created a need to create multiple subsidiaries that focus on different aspects. Why am I saying this is due to that need, due to this differences, we created a portfolio lead system where there are multiple subject matter experts within every department that ensures high knowledge transfer in performance between each department. So this creates this cohesive and unified performance culture, awarding culture that makes sure everybody knows what is going to be recognized at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So basically what we can try to highlight from this, right, is the fact that in addition to having formal, well-built systems, right, we also need to build on those systems, right? And basically how we can link the systems with the performance culture that we're trying to create is through proper recognition, appreciation, right? As well as, of course, making sure that the daily interactions between all of the different stakeholders, right, both internal and external, right, all of them are linked to an ongoing purpose. So how does recognition work within Red Sea Global, right? Because I'm sure it extends beyond just the formal standardized systems, right? So how does that then feed into the overall culture, where, let's say, appreciation, the purpose, right, the end purpose of the organization, as well as motivation, how is that embedded into everyday practices?
I think it largely goes back to having a clarity in terms of what are the individual objectives and goals. So this is where our teams come in to make sure that this is properly translated. But also it goes back to making sure that we do not rely only on the formalized systems, but we are able to recognize great performance as it occurs, and making sure that the wider organization is aware of that, and making sure that if we have any novel solutions, if we have any novel ways of overcoming obstacles, this is well documented, this is available to the wider organization, and certain individuals who are responsible for those are recognized and rewarded.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I think clarity here is absolutely crucial. And once this clarity is what's there, everyone can contribute heavily. And I think our colleagues at HR can second this. They have a couple of initiatives that ensure all employees, high-performing, high-potential employees, are well recognized.
Mm-hmm.
There are different variety of programs that ensure this highly motivational for everyone across the organization.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we can pretty clearly state that recognition is a very powerful cultural driver, right? But another area that we saw or where we were able to identify best practices in the assessment that we conducted was related to the performance management system, particularly the employee performance management system, and how well that allows the organization, right, to make it easier for each individual to find a clear connection, right, to have that line of sight, right, between day-to-day work and the organization's priorities. So how does that look like, right? Or how can we maybe learn from what you are doing when it comes to Red Sea Globe, right? Because in your situation, we have a very clear integration between the organizational strategy as well as the performance management system itself, right? And that system is enabled by digital platforms which are built, right, and implemented across the different levels within the organization. So how does, let's say, how do people see this overall performance management process, right? People that work for RSG. And we can talk about this from, let's say, the early stages, right? From the goal setting part all the way to the assessment and the recognition side of things.
So when it comes to the goal setting part, we make sure that when we define objectives, whether it's for subsidiary or whether it's for a division, everyone is clear what are these objectives and how their own personal objectives are linked to that. Mm-hmm. So there is a clear linkage between levels. That ensures that everyone is clear on what is expected, how they contribute to the bigger picture, how they drive the agenda of the entire organization.
Thank you.
Yeah, so exactly as Lux mentioned, system is created to provide clarity, and this clarity is what unifies all. So again, clarity.
Clarity. Okay, so that's one of the keywords for today. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Now, what I like us to do as a, let's say, next step in the conversation is because up until now we try to focus on the internal workings, right? So the internal engine, the performance management system. Let's try to maybe take a step back and talk a bit about the larger context, right? Because Red Sea Global doesn't exist in isolation. You guys are part of a way larger whole, which is Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, which is one of the most ambitious national transformation programs that exists in the globe. So let's try to talk a bit about how do you see, right, the role of performance management systems within an organizational context, right? How does that feed into, let's say, the external positioning part of a country altogether, right? So how or where do you see the link between RSG's integrated performance culture and the kingdom's ambition to be recognized as one of the world's models when it comes to innovation, resilience, as well as sustainable development?
Of course, that's interesting. It all starts with Vision 2030. Everything is cascaded from there. We take huge pride to be part of the national developer and the national operators of one of the most exciting projects in the kingdom. Red Sea obviously plays a huge part in the tourism sector as we deviate from oil revenues and increasing the non-oil revenues, especially in the tourism ecosystem. Red Sea plays a pivotal and huge and crucial role to develop this sector. This pride and this cascade from the Vision 2030 until a proper structure of structural cascade of all the objectives drive us as Red Seers to work even in the minimal and operational objectives to deliver the most exciting outcomes of the kingdom.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Majid.
Yes.
Lukas, what about you? How
And
do you see the link?
maybe to add to what Majid said, based on our recent experience with GPA unit, we are proud to share our practices with the wider community of KSA companies, whether these are giga projects, whether these are different private entities, to make sure that the highest standards of performance, whether it's coming to strategy, to performance management, to talent management, are adopted in the wider context of country's transformation.
Let's not forget the fact that we play a huge part as setting a new benchmarking example of sustainability and regenerative tourism, which is niche in the world, and we're the benchmark to the global.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys, and best of luck, right, in pushing things forward. Okay, now let's see. Turning back towards the conversation when it comes to performance culture and its link to strategy and performance, the result of assessments, right? Any type of assessments, particularly the ones that we talked about a bit earlier, right? When it comes to this maturity assessment, what they provide you, right, are primarily data, right, information. But it's not always clear how to actually make use of that information that you're able to generate, right? So how do we ensure that we're able to deploy these lessons learned, right, these insights within the actual context of an organization itself? So looking back, what do you see as the most valuable takeaway from conducting a maturity assessment, right? So what would be something that you would share with other companies as a key lesson learned or a highlight of this overall exercise?
I would say number one would be the mere ability to stop and reflect upon our own practices. Because during the busy day-to-day, it's not always easy to zoom out and look at your own processes and practices. And that was a great opportunity. Number two, we need to be mindful that not all of the insights are equally important and urgent. So for us, it was classifying them into those that are more short-term, those that are rather mid-term, and those that are to be considered in the longer term. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, we also recognize the value of the assessment and wanted to make it part of regular processes. Mm-hmm. Therefore, towards the end of the year, we always look back, we always assess ourselves internally, and we're trying to reflect on, okay, how did we go this year? Yep. What could we do better? And so on. So we kind of embedded this assessment into our regular operations.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is well said, and probably nothing more to add except the fact that the survey itself and the assessment were structured in a way that guide companies and how to achieve the highest and the most optimal way of performance practices. So it shows you gaps and it shows you North Star and the roadmap to the best optimal way possible. And I think it was a good call for us to zoom out from our practices and reflect back on what are those lessons learned. Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Majid. And thank you both. And again, I think the aspect that you were able to highlight is something that's fundamentally important for everyone to take away from this conversation, right? It's the fact that assessments aren't a one-time off exercise. And it's just something that you do that once and then you forget. It's basically trying to incorporate that within the overall working of the organization. Right? So we should end up in kind of like creating a rhythm when going through this type of ongoing exercise. So to close things off, right, a final question addressed to both of you. How do you see this continuous assessment and improvement in the way that it shapes RSG's performance culture, as well as when it comes to employee experience, right, when it comes to going further in the future?
So as you mentioned, it's not a one-time thing. It's a living process. We have to embody day by day to ensure continuous improvement. This Kaizen culture, to adopt a continuous improvement culture, is what always drives organization to the most excellence and the most optimal way. Yeah. So there's no dead end, there's always a continuous improvement until the infinity. So adopting this mindset is crucial.
Great, thank you.
And to second what Majid said, I think it also creates an appealing employer proposition. So people want to be part of the organization that is learning, that is evolving, where environment challenges you and requires you to move forward. So I think it, fits the bigger agenda of creating an attractive working environment.
Yeah, great. Yep. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to sit together with you today. And I wish both of you, as well as RSG all together, best of luck moving forward. And hope to see you guys maybe further down the line when we expand the assessment to 7 stars, right? So you get the 7 out of 7 then.
I think we're going to be the first one.
First one, definitely.
No doubt about it. Thank you, Mihai.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen.
We're very happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, everyone, thank you for listening to us today. And again, thank you to our colleagues and friends, Lukash and Majid, for sharing their experience and reflections with such clarity and with such insight. Now, for our listeners, moving forward, if you'd like to build on our conversation and let's say take the learning journey moving forward, I want to direct you to GPA Unit's Insights, which is our platform for strategy and performance leaders across the entire region. This is where we share evidence-based practices, real-world lessons, right, as well as meaningful insights that you can action upon in your organizations. You'll find formats that are designed for different types of learners and learning mechanisms. We have our Mind the Gap webinars, our Leading Voices podcast, which you were kind enough to listen today, as well as our flagship publication, which is The Ladder, which will actually feature a detailed case study on Red Sea Global, right? So all of you can learn a bit more about how Red Sea Global has been able to get to this level of excellence when it comes to strategy and performance management. We wish you all of the best when it comes to your strategy and performance endeavors. Thank you again for listening to us today. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Leading Voices by GPA Unit. Subscribe and follow us through the links in the description.